Hello, everyone. My name is Darius, and I want to thank you for joining us today, creating a scalable and repeatable threat hunting program. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our speakers for today, Ryan and Harrison.
Thanks, Darius. Thanks, everybody, for joining. My name's Ryan Fortress. I'm a Senior Tech Alliance Engineer at VMware Carbon Black. And today, Harrison and I will be going through an overview of the integration between Siemplify and Carbon Black for automating a threat hunting program. And Harrison, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here, guys, and I'm looking forward to showcasing some of the stuff we've been working on for you. Thanks, Ryan.
Absolutely. So the basics of a threat hunting program, what are the core components? We see 4 core components. Obviously, the human will always be necessary, but then also the processes and playbooks. Those are going to be in place for automated, repeatable remediation, the threat intelligence to help enrich and guide the processes, and then the security tools to gain context and to take action. So where does VMware Carbon Black fit into these 4 phases, right? So first, a little bit about what is VMware Carbon Black Cloud. The key point is that it is a single cloud platform, a single agent, and one console to view for 4 different products. That's going to be your next-gen AV, your enterprise EDR, managed detection, and audit and remediation. And we support the devices. We're focused on the endpoint, the devices being Windows, Mac, and Linux, deployable to Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Amazon AWS. And again, it's one platform for all interactions. And the processes around that we have around threat hunting are threefold. First is the detection, then the investigation, then responding. So the detection is we will collect all data from every endpoint. So that's going to be all network activity, registry changes, file modifications, and we're going to collect all of that information and send it up to the cloud and crunch on it. We're going to correlate that data and create triggers out of that or create alarms out of that. And once you have the alarm, then it's important to go in and investigate and verify the root cause, what actions took place during that alert, and really dig into it and confirm yes or no, is this thing bad? If it is, then move on to the 3rd phase, which is respond. And we'll look at some of the actions that we have available in Carbon Black, but this is going to be something like isolating the endpoint, killing a process, moving the device to a different policy, a more restricted policy, things along those lines. And we're going to continue that cycle over and over across all alerts, which manually can be fine, but if we can automate that process, even better. And so that's where Siemplify comes in. They can help automate that entire process. And where does VMware Carbon Black fit in to the Siemplify process, right? So there's 3 different phases. The first is on that detection process. We can generate an alert, which then will kick off a process inside of Siemplify. Or if a process has already kicked off, if a playbook has already kicked off, then we can be queried for additional information or context as to what's going on. And finally, we can remediate. We can either, like I said, isolate the endpoint, move to a different policy, or with something like live response, we can go in and actually take action by pulling files, putting files like a script, executing files, killing processes, pulling memory, things along those lines. And so let's look at how we can identify or detect the threat and then respond to it. So if we go over to our dashboard here. So this is the Carbon Black Cloud. Again, single console, single platform, 4 different products. And what we're looking at here is just the dashboard overview as to what's going on in the Carbon Black Cloud platform. If we want to dig in, then we can go into alerts. And I'm just going to filter down on the one that I generated for this demo. And if we click on it, then we can see the process information. So we can start to see the process name, the hash that was from that process, the signature information, and a few other basic information. Now, if we want to take action on this process, we can add it to a whitelist so it doesn't create alerts anymore. We can add it to a blacklist so that any host that has this application open, it will automatically be killed and it will not be allowed to execute again with a blacklist. Now, we also want to know information about the device. So we can go in and we can see the user that was logged in. We can see the device information. As we're going through this investigation, we may want to move it into a more restrictive policy while we investigate. We may want to move it into a Windows restrictive policy, which would prevent PowerShell execution or a few other policies. And also we want to come in and dig into this alert. So if we expand the alert down below, we'll see the processes that created the alert. It's important to note that an alert is one or more events. A collection of events justify the alert. And on those events, we categorize them by TTPs. And so we can see a collection of the TTPs from the various events that justified this alert. So we may see the main one that I'll point out here is T1075 on the pass the hash. So we can see a general overview of the TTPs for this alert, but we want to dig in more. We want to investigate. And so what we'll do is we'll come over and click on the investigate process. And for here, now it's important to know, we are recording everything and sending it up to the cloud, right? So because we're doing that, we're able to see everything that happened along that process tree from root cause all the way through to the end. So we can see here that a user executed PowerShell, which then executed another PowerShell session, and it reached out to an IP address, got some user information, and then it scraped the memory of LSAS. So this is the pass the hash right here. If we look off to the side, we can see the binary details, the exact command that was used to execute it and everything. And we can see those TTPs again. Here's the pass the hash. If we scroll down, we can actually see all the individual events that created that alert. So if we start expanding these, you can see the TTPs per event that were used to justify that alert, along with a lot of other information on the event. What's important to note is that all of this information is available via API. We've been able to go through and we've detected an anomaly. We've gone through and we've investigated it. We've confirmed that this thing is indeed bad. Now we want to go ahead and take action. And one of the ways that we can do that is we can quarantine the device. We can again, take action on the binaries, move the device into a different policy, or we can go live, which is live response, where you have immediate access down to the terminal or down to the host itself. So we can go in and start, we can kill a process, we can pull memory, all kinds of different things. But again, all of these things are available via API. So what Harrison and his team were able to do is take all of these and incorporate them into Siemplify as apps, and they can create entire workflows around this, entire playbooks that automate everything that we've just shown in the UI. And so now what I'll do is I'll kick it over to Harrison to kind of showcase how that looks in Siemplify.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Well, I don't know about you guys, but the second we at Siemplify saw the capabilities of Carbon Black Cloud, we got really excited and we immediately wanted to create some powerful playbooks and integrations that connected directly into that tool so that they can just feed automatically into each other. Now, before I show you the integration work that we've been creating together, I want to give you guys a little bit of an overview on our platform, in case you're not familiar with who we are, what we do, and what our solution looks like. And then after that, I am excited to showcase almost exactly what Ryan just showed you right now, but in an automated single click. And this is a live demo, so we're actually connecting to Carbon Black Cloud directly through our account. So I'm excited to hit the play button and see how it runs. But for those who are less familiar with our platform, welcome. This is the Siemplify Platform. Now, for those who are familiar with SOAR platforms, and I personally am quite familiar, I have a background working with multiple SOAR platforms before I joined Siemplify. There are several different ways that SOAR sort of gets created, or we like to describe it as SOAR DNA. You can come from like a threat intelligence centric background. So you can, that would be an example of like a threat connector, something like that. You can come from an automation background, which might be something like Phantom. In our case, we came from a SOC centric background. Now, what I like about this is essentially we've designed our orchestration platform to be centered around organizing the security team, organizing everybody together into a single platform, not only to control all your other tools, have them flow automatically into each other, but also to collaborate and get things done, to triage, etc. Oftentimes, when you have a fully deployed SOAR solution into an environment, we find that organizations tend to spend a lot of time inside of that SOAR solution. So we've designed a very nice GUI to accommodate that, so that way you and your team can live on the platform, interact with each other, and really get that full power of controlling your entire security stack in a single view. So you'll notice that the design of Siemplify is centered around that. So this is our solution. So when you log in, you're going to get an overview of here's everything that needs to be done. Here are the cases that have been assigned to you. But really the place that you're going to live most of the time is going to be in our cases section. So this is where all of our, what we like to call connectors, essentially they are scripts that periodically pull alerts from the various sources that they've been hooked up to. And of course, this is dependent on your security stack. All of the cases that have been brought in are going to be over here on the left. Now, what's interesting about these cases, and we're going to take a look at Carbon Black in just a moment here, but what's interesting about these cases is we like to do alert grouping. So as you have a series of alerts that have shared fields or probably have something in common, let's say you get an alert from your phishing solution, and then you get an alert from Carbon Black Cloud, maybe you have a correlation with on one of your watch lists, and that fires off an alert, and then maybe you have a separate set of IOCs that are running on your SIEM. You might have multiple alerts that are firing off all together, and it can be really confusing. If they're interrelated, it might take time to stitch them together. But one thing that we do, as you can see here, I've just selected one of these cases here. We actually group the alerts together. So again, these are all your cases. Once you selected your case, that's going to be the center section of the screen here. So each one of these alerts came in from a different source. They're going to have different playbooks associated with them, different entities that are of interest. And if you notice in this section down here, we're going to be bringing in contextual enrichment. Ryan briefly showed you that slide where we had that architecture laid out. We had all the, essentially like we pulled in alerts, we enriched, and then we remediated, right? So this is the enrichment part. This can bring in all sorts of great information. When it comes to Carbon Black, we're going to be bringing in things like the universal binary store. We're going to be bringing in like device info, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, the section below here, and of course, on the far right, this is actually just where you get the full breakdown of all the entities of interest, the IP addresses, the hosts, et cetera. But at the bottom section here, this is going to be the playbook that has been executed for the specific alert or for the case itself. So if we go ahead and let's actually check out some of the content from Carbon Black. So to do that, before I show you like an actual case that ran, let's take a look at that playbook. And it's going to sort of map to what Ryan just showed you in the console. The idea being is that we want to automate a lot of the interaction with the VMware Carbon Black Cloud console. So we've gone ahead and built this playbook. Now, granted, this is a pretty generic playbook, but it's really sort of to showcase a lot of the API calls that we've been meticulously designing with the platform. So we've set up our playbook designer here. Now, this is designed to be a very intuitive sort of drag and drop stackable programming solution. I myself am a full stack developer, and I've been, as I mentioned before, I have quite a bit of extensive experience with orchestration platforms, and all of them have this sort of similar snappy feel to it, where you have a section of blocks that you can drag and drop, like so. In our case, we actually have 4 different types. So we're going to have triggers, which are going to be sort of how the playbook kicks off. And this can be designed to be around like the network or specific lists that you want to specify, or just strings inside of the alerts themselves, or just if you want a playbook to fire on every single Carbon Black solution, you can specify that here. The next part is going to be the blue boxes, and that's going to be all your API calls. Now, I'll showcase in just a moment how extensive our marketplace is, but it's quite large. It's actually one of my main responsibilities is managing all the interactions with all these great companies like Carbon Black to make sure that we have our integrations polished and up to snuff. And then finally, or not finally, but third to final, is going to be our flow blocks. And this is going to allow you to branch down different paths of the playbook. Interestingly, we also have what are called blocks. Now, I haven't built any blocks in this system, but that will allow you to standardize certain sections of your playbooks. So for example, if you always want to go to virus total, and then you want to check like IP void, maybe you also want to do Google safe browsing, you might call that your standard threat intelligence enrichment block. So you could actually design a block, which is just a little miniature playbook that you can toss inside of another playbook. So let's actually take a look at this Carbon Black playbook that we built right here. This is pretty straightforward. We're actually correlating on specifically whenever the alert is a threat alert, and that comes from the Carbon Black API, which is basically going to be like a watch list correlation. So once we get that correlation kicked off, it's going to fire an alert. When that alert flows in, we immediately want to fetch the device info. This is going to give us stuff like the current pulse, the current policy ID that's running on that device, as well as information about the operating system, all sorts of good stuff. We want to enrich that in the case so that the analyst knows what they're dealing with. Next, we want to get details about the policy. What kind of policy are we dealing with? Is this is the device currently on? Primarily, we want to just bring this in for functional purposes, so that way the playbook can take advantage of the information that has been detailed by that call, and we can use them in future blocks. Next, we want to go ahead and retrieve the file metadata. So we want to know what's up with that file. And this is going to be accessing the UBS, the Universal Binary Store, an impressive feature from Carbon Black. They basically have it, as you can imagine, a storage of binary information, and that's going to be really useful for an analyst to see in their case. We're going to update the case, and then we're going to go ahead and check the policy status. So if it's restricted already, I think we're good to go. We can just close the case. Maybe we need to do a little investigation further. It's up to your discretion. In this case, though, if it isn't, we want to go ahead and update that policy to the correct one. And we've just specified that by finding that policy ID inside of the Carbon Black console. And then after that, we're a big believer in automation, but also we're a believer in putting the stopgaps where it's going to be potentially hazardous if you just automate everything without thinking. So we actually have a manual question here that goes straight to the assigned analyst that says, hey, are you sure you want to quarantine this based on the information we brought in? And that's going to give them a yes/no set of options. If they select yes, then it's going to go ahead and call the quarantine API endpoint. If they select no, we're going to update the case status. And then we're going to leverage a really cool feature of Carbon Black, which is called live response. Now, when I saw this personally, I got really excited. I mentioned I'm a full stack developer. I'm in the console all the time. It's really slick that you're able to actually execute remote console commands via API. This is immensely powerful for a SOAR solution. Essentially, you can just replicate some very basic but sort of down and dirty actions using Carbon Black, and you can just touch multiple endpoints automatically yourself. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take the process information that came in from the alert, go ahead and fetch a unique identifier for it, because we want to fetch the PID, the process ID. We're going to start a session, so we're going to basically shell in to the device, and then we're going to kill the PID. And that's basically sort of our showcase playbook. Now, I'm going to run this live for you in just a moment. So if we hop back over to our case wall here, you notice that I've already run this playbook on a different example, but we're going to actually run it on a fresh one. So I actually turned off the playbook from automatically running so that I can just showcase it to you right here. So if we click the plus, we're going to scroll on down, and this is the live demo part, my favorite part. We'll see how it goes. You'll see here that the playbook has launched. The orange dot in the top right-hand corner means that it's thinking about it. If we hit refresh, we've gone ahead and made some progress. So we've fetched some device information. If I refresh the whole case, you're going to see that the data is brought down here. Now, what this means right here is that the universal binary store doesn't have this information. This is actually a demo process that is running on the endpoint. So that's not surprising here, but we do have the device information. If I zoom in here, that's just brought to the analyst's attention. And we're actually ending on this manual question. In this case, I don't think I really want to quarantine the device just for now, just because, of course, it's just a demonstration. But as that flows through, that's actually going to go ahead and initiate our session with live response. And we can go ahead and see how that flows through. So we actually just updated it, and now what it's going to do is it's going to fetch the PID. So it did that. It's process ID number 5200, which is great because that's what Ryan told me it was before the beginning of the demonstration. So that's good. Everything's working. It successfully established the session. Here's the session ID. And then it went and it executed the kill command. So that's great. So we've successfully executed our flow automatically. Pretty slick, right? Now, what we can do to further enhance this is we can hop over to the rest of our security stack. I mean, just to showcase what we've done with Carbon Black, I do a little search here. We've integrated with their enterprise EDR, aka for those of you who might not be familiar with the new terminology, I believe that's used to be called Carbon Black Threat Hunter. Carbon Black Cloud, the main console, we have all sorts of great actions there. Scroll down a little too aggressively. And then, of course, we've built some stuff with live response. Live response is more in beta. Any of these sort of remote commands, we're actually use the same API endpoint. So it's just a matter of adding those in over time, a very quick process. And then we've integrated with all the other Carbon Black legacy solutions. So no matter what solutions you picked, we can probably integrate it. But we can also spice up our playbooks with adding stuff like threat intelligence from a solution like Anomaly, ThreatStream. You can also get Active Directory information, API calls. All of it can be mix and match inside of your orchestration and automation processes, so that they can not only be standardized, so that way your knowledge is actually maintained as you know you add team members, etc. But also so that you can automate as much of that content as possible. As it's running along, these playbooks get executed in the background, or they get executed manually. We actually do a really good job at meticulously auditing every single step that occurs. If we go to our case wall right here, you can see here that we had 11 actions that actually ran, and we can just filter those. We can view the actual JSON that gets returned, or the information that gets sort of automatically enriched. We can go to the insights, which is the enrichment. So in that case, this was the universal binary store information. This was the information about the hosts. It's really easy to just see what exactly ran. All this gets logged. And what's great about that is if you want to do some in-depth analysis as to what the heck is happening inside of my security team, we can actually organize that into dashboards. And every solution has a pretty dashboards. But what's really compelling about our dashboards is, again, they're entirely based upon what's legitimately being executed from a practical standpoint from your team. So we can do things like breaking down stuff like ROI or like efficiency increases, how many things are being automated. Oh, looks like I haven't actually filled in anything on this dashboard here. You can check out our MITRE, oops, I'm not clicking properly. We can check out our MITRE dashboard, which is going to give us information around sort of the MITRE attack framework, which playbooks are being executed surrounding that framework. And there's lots of different options that you can do to get insights into what's happening into your environment. The final thing I want to showcase, just real quick, to us, and a little plug for our platform, is what we call our war room. Our war room is our instant and crisis management solution. So let's say that you have a flow that kicked off from some carbon black solutions, but this time this looks actually pretty serious. This looks like we have a major, like, widespread ransomware on some critical files, or we have like a huge leak with where we are losing sensitive company information, maybe like intellectual property, or maybe like a large breach of customer data, something like that. North Korea's in our environment. What do? We can actually go ahead and take one of those and launch what we call a war room incident. So inside of our war room, we actually can mobilize multiple sections of our company, and this can be actually external or internal. Either way, they get invitations to this console, and they can see this overview. What are we doing? What's happening? What's going on? I just got the email. I kind of skimmed through it, but presenting it in a pretty picture can be more impactful. The idea is that the security team really should be the one sourcing this sort of incident, so they can control the access, who gets invited, and basically orchestrate the whole thing inside of our console. So you can see all the different assessments that have been made, the CEO assessment, the information from legal, HR, et cetera, what's going to be done, press releases. The idea is to cut down on all those Slack threads, to reduce those 70 chain email threads, and then just give you a nice singular pane of glass to really get things done. If you want to preview what that console looks like for another user, you just click that button right there, and it looks pretty similar. But the idea is this is what they would log in to, and they would see. Obviously, there wouldn't be too much information about the access of the participants, but they would just see the details on the incident itself. But without further ado, that pretty much does it for our demonstration. I'm happy that everything worked well and it connected to the cloud, and pulled down that data. And we executed our flow, enriched the case, killed the process, and got everything done. So without further ado, I think I'm ready to pass it back.
Good.
This
is very, thanks, Harrison. This is very powerful. The ability that Siemplify has to grab all of the intelligence and context and all those things and present to the human to make an intelligent decision instead of just like an auto analyst button is very powerful. Thank you. Let's see if I can get
my pleasure, Ryan.
All right, very cool. So just to wrap up that demo real quick, thanks, Harrison. If we go in, and I'm just going to quickly look at that endpoint, you can see that it was automatically assigned to the other policy through his flow. Let's just switch back to that slide here. And this is just a quick overview of the integration between Carbon Black Cloud and Siemplify, some of the things that you'll get out of it, some of the integration benefits. It's going to standardize and accelerate repetitive workflows by creating playbooks out of this. You have a repeatable process that will go through and automate the mundane processes that typically are very time consuming for a human. In that thread, we're going to save time and money by reducing the resources needed to investigate and respond. So because these are automated processes, that have been established and proven. You're able to go through and do what would normally take a human 45 minutes to do. You're able to automate the mundane process and present those options to the human to make an intelligent decision using the seamless orchestration and actions across the security IT. So they're not just integrating with Carbon Black, although that is a very powerful integration. They're integrating with everything. So you want to grab your information from everything possible. Your endpoints, show me everything that endpoint has been doing in the last hour of an incident, all the way through the firewall, who have they been talking to, and things like that. Bring all of that in to help manage separated teams and help them communicate with each other. And finally, improve your confidence in the automated workflow. So over and over, as these repetitions are more successful, you'll find opportunities to slightly tune them, but over time, they will become very repeatable, and you'll gain confidence in it and have a wonderful threat hunting program. So with that, turn it over.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Harrison. Again, feel free if you do have any questions to pop those into the GoToWebinar module. We do have a few to start us off. Let's see, what products from each side are needed to use this integration?
Sure, I could start there. Actually, they've made it very easy. So in our one console, one platform, we do have those 4 different products. We were looking at this from an architectural standpoint when we first started trying to figure out this integration, and Harrison had the great idea of breaking these out into separate apps. So an app per product that is available on Carbon Black Cloud. So we have, as Harrison was showing earlier, a product for endpoint standard, for the EDR, live response, audit and remediation. So by having them modularized into individual apps, it applies to any product that you would have on Carbon Black Cloud. And Harrison, I'll turn it over for you from a Siemplify standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Ryan. So what we did was we just pawed through all of the actually very nice API documentation for Carbon Black. Popped in the credentials. We've made it very clear in the setup page from Siemplify. Of course, there's only one Siemplify solution, so it's easy from our end. But you just pop in your API credentials. We have a test button. It will connect to each module of interest. And again, Ryan and I did have some extensive discussion on how to split it up. You know, should we bundle, you know, this app into defense, but like, it needs to be turned on separately. We separated it out so that way it's very clear from a functionality perspective. So live response, that's all those commands through the sort of simulated shell console. That's all in one single app. So that way, all your commands that you're executing, it's just clearly right there. It's not confusing. It's not bundled in with something else. It's all separated. So yeah, all the solutions are there. You can also check our website for an available list of integrations if you're curious about anything else. Good question.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you both. Another question, Harrison, probably for you, although Ryan, you might want to chime in. Are the playbooks in Siemplify fully automated? Great question. So they can be. As I mentioned before, we absolutely want to give the ability to customize that as you see fit. So oftentimes what we see are security teams will create a number of a sort of low-tier, completely automated playbooks to try and clear out a lot of the repetitive noise, so that way, you know, there's less misery and less time being spent on the same ticket that they just close out. And it would be very easy to pre-program some logic in there just to clear out all that garbage. But then we also have the option to semi-automate a number of tickets. And that's when you're going to need a little bit of intelligence, a little bit of additional elbow grease from your security team to sort of fully vet out each one of these tickets, just to make sure that there's no real security incident. And then finally, you can also have things that honestly just contextualize cases. So all they do is just gather all the pieces you need to know, hand it over to the analyst, so that way
they can just use their expertise, review the information that they've got without having to pivot to multiple different platforms, and then they can go ahead and start calling out their API calls from there to start doing the work that needs to be done. So it's a full spectrum. It's completely up to you and your team. What's great is whatever sort of level of expertise, or maybe you have like some very talented senior analysts on your team, whatever they've designed to sort of standardize how they approach an incident. Let's say it's like a phishing incident. They always want to download the file, or they want to look at the file information. They want to check out the links from multiple threat intelligence sources. Whatever they've decided to do, it will actually be immortalized in our platform. Whereas if you have processes that are buried under unique scripts that have been built by a developer, et cetera, you might have sort of a loss of knowledge if you have any sort of new changes in your team. So whatever you do, whether it's automated, semi-automated, or manual, all that's still going to be there. And no matter who you have on your team, they can actually update that, edit it, et cetera. So again, another great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that feature to be able to present a question to a human as part of the flow is very powerful. Being able to gather all that information, present it to the human, ask them the question to make an intelligent decision, and then move on is important, because it's all fun and games until you block Facebook, right? So
yeah. Exactly, Ryan. And another great feature actually of our solution is we're actually quite popular with managed service providers. And part of the reason why is because we allow interactability. There are a number of reasons. So one of the cool reasons is we provide that sort of manual interactability between the MSSP and the client. So that way, things can automatically be done, but as soon as remediation wants to occur or something like that, the MSSP can actually pass it over to their client, and the client can then approve or disapprove of executing that remediation, which is pretty slick.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
good question. Yeah.
All right. Can I create my own playbooks for Carbon Black in Siemplify, or are they all pre-built?
Yeah, another great question. So we do have a number of pre-built integrations. They're mostly for Carbon Black's previous solutions, which of course would be like protection and response, et cetera, defense. The one that we just built here was mostly just to showcase the capabilities of the platform. Of course, if anybody who has a Siemplify solution, or if you want to check out our community edition, which is completely free, I think you have a maximum of like 2 or 3 integrations. So if you want to go ahead and get started and start orchestrating your Carbon Black cloud solutions, we haven't actually published this content with Carbon Black Cloud just yet, but we're on the cusp. But if you want to go ahead and get your hands on our solution, you can download our community edition. But yeah, so as far as a sort of playbook perspective, most of it is going to be stuff that you're going to want to customize. We're in the process of building use cases, which are playbooks that actually have instructional videos, descriptions, multiple playbooks actually bundled into the use case, and it's all going to be shared on our basically our marketplace, which is sort of the central place where you saw all those integrations listed. And that's where we're going to have use cases, not only from Carbon Black, but we're also going to have them from other solutions or other companies, and potentially even some MSSPs, just to showcase their security prowess. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, it's highly customizable, right? So you'll have all the actions at your fingertips, and you'll just be able to plug and play and rock and roll.
Yeah, and as we add any new API capabilities, it's fairly straightforward for them to be added to these apps as well. So very flexible.
Exactly.
Awesome. One question probably for Harrison. Is Siemplify multi-tenant?
Yes, that's a great question. So with MSSPs, again, we have, oh man, just goes to show you that I'm the sales engineer, not the sales guy. The statistic eludes me. I believe we have something like 11 out of the 19 sort of largest MSSPs as our customers. It's a very strong customer base for us. And of course, an essential requirement of that is multi-tenancy. In fact, we even have organizations that are just broken down into multiple departments actually use its multi-tenancy as well. It's very multi-tenant. It's the data is segregated. It's designed for multiple companies to be on the same platform and you know, not interact or with each other, and the data is secured and separated. It's actually a really big feature that has been baked in the platform for a long time. We have other great features that sort of serve MSSPs quite well. And I mentioned the dashboarding, and I know like pretty much every cybersecurity solution has dashboarding, but this one is really meant to give clarity as far as what gets performed by the MSSPs. So that way you can get like a breakdown of the value to clients of the MSSP to make sure that you're actually getting your worth. How many tickets have they closed? How many tickets have they passed over? How many have they remediated? What's the ROI, etc. Not to get too far off track, but short answer, yes, it is multi-tenant. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So we are coming right up at the 45-minute mark. So I just wanted to thank everyone who joined us and participated in the conversation today. I want to thank you guys, Ryan and Harrison. I don't know if you have any parting thoughts before we close out today.
Just one for me is, again, we here at Siemplify, we're big fans of Carbon Black. We saw the powerful capabilities they've been building into their cloud solution. They're unifying their API. They're putting all their products, their product suite into one console. It's really exciting stuff. It's very clean. It's comfortable to use. And the API documentation is great. I mean, I really do highly recommend you guys check it out. If it meets sort of what you're looking for from your security team, give it a look. And it's been a real pleasure developing some of the content personally to integrate with them and connect all their powerful tools together. I mean, what a great experience. Ryan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. So this was a really good adventure that we took together on this integration. I think it tells a very good story, a very powerful story. The only thing I would recommend is going out to carbonblack.com/partners, and then Siemplify has their own section on that page where you can see the demo videos, you can see some blogs. We'll have some technical documentation on there, some links to some different things, but check it out. And then also on that same page, check out some of the other integrations as well. They're all available on there. The API is very powerful. Yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for listening to Harrison. Yeah, go ahead.
And one last plug, go check out our community edition. It's free, download it, give it a shot. We're trying to unify security practices and get everybody sharing what they do and how they react to things and putting them into playbooks. Go check it out, give it a shot. And you can experiment with Carbon Black solutions on there. That's all, one last plug. Have a good one, guys.
Very cool.
Awesome. Thanks, team, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys. Bye.